In the golden plains of southern Africa, beyond the shimmering heat and endless grasslands, lived two lions, Sefu and Mara. They were companions forged not only by instinct, but by an unspoken bond of survival. For many seasons, they ruled their small patch of the wilderness, hunting side by side, resting under the acacia trees, and roaring their dominion into the vast skies. But change crept into their world. Rainfall grew scarce. Rivers shrank into cracked earth. Herds of antelope vanished like ghosts. Faced with hunger and thirst, Sefu and Mara made a silent decision. They would leave their ancestral grounds to find a new sanctuary. They journeyed for weeks, battling exhaustion and rival predators. Each night, Sefu kept vigil while Mara, her breath growing heavier each passing day, tried to conserve her strength. They crossed perilous ravines, dense thorn thickets, and barren stretches where the only sound was the whistling wind. Unbeknownst to them, new life stirred within Mara's womb. One night, as a dust storm rolled across the savannah, Sefu shielded Mara with his body, his golden mane bristling against the biting sand. In the darkness, hyenas circled, their laughter echoing like a cruel symphony. Sefu roared with all his might, sending the scavengers scattering into the night. Mara watched him through weary eyes, her heart swelling with both gratitude and fear. The following days tested them even further. Without enough food, Mara weakened. Sefu was forced to take greater risks, venturing closer to other predators' territories to find prey. He narrowly escaped a brutal encounter with a pack of wild dogs, sustaining a gash on his shoulder. Mara, though exhausted, tended to his wound with gentle licks, a silent testament to their unbreakable bond. During one grueling day, they stumbled upon a stagnant waterhole guarded by a crocodile. Mara's thirst pushed her dangerously close to the muddy bank. But Sefu stood between her and the lurking danger, roaring defiantly until the reptile sank back into the depths. Even in desperation, Sefu's instinct to protect Mara never wavered. Days blurred into nights, and nights into days. The journey etched hardship into their bodies but only deepened their bond. Together they faced endless challenges. Torrential rains that turned trails into swamps, bitterly cold nights that numbed their weary muscles, and the ever-present scent of death on the wind. Through it all, Sefu and Mara moved as one, an unbreakable unit bound by necessity and love. Eventually, the scent of wet soil and the call of distant herds led them to Makado National Park, a sprawling reserve renowned for its life-giving rivers and protective boundaries. There, two park rangers, Elijah, a veteran patrol driver, and Thandi, an astute wildlife biologist, first noticed the strangers. Fresh paw prints, deep and wide, marked the riverbanks. Intrigued and cautious, Elijah and Thandi observed from afar. They noted the pair's wariness, the male's nightly roars that claimed invisible lines of territory, and Mara's restless movements. Thandi, with her keen eyes, soon suspected the truth. Mara was pregnant. Hope bloomed within the park staff. A new generation of lions would strengthen Makado's fragile ecosystem. Yet danger loomed. Mara grew slower, her body burdened, and when her labor began, the skies above the savannah darkened ominously. For 2 agonizing days, Mara struggled. Her cries echoed into the grasslands, a sound of pain and desperation. Sefu circled her restlessly, his mane bristling, his eyes frantic. Elijah and Thandi knew intervention was risky. Tranquilizing Mara was too dangerous, and any misstep could shatter the delicate trust between man and beast. They decided to act. At twilight, the patrol vehicle approached, its engine murmuring like a cautious heart. Sefu growled, a deep, resonant warning, standing tall between the humans and his mate. But when Thandi stepped down, her hands empty, her posture low and non-threatening, something shifted. Sefu did not attack. His eyes, wild yet intelligent, watched her every move. Whispering soft reassurances, Thandi inched closer. Mara, weakened but aware, lifted her head. In that moment, trust, fragile, trembling trust, crossed the gulf between species. Gently, Thandi administered a shot to ease the birthing process. Elijah remained by the vehicle, ready to distract if needed. For 2 more long hours, the world held its breath. And then, under a sky smeared with stars, a cub was born. Tiny, slick, and gasping, The new life struggled onto the earth. Mara, with a weary but radiant gaze, nuzzled her daughter. Sefu, rumbling deep in his chest, licked the cub clean. Thandi wiped away tears she didn't bother to hide. Elijah allowed himself a quiet whoop of triumph. They named the cub Nia, meaning purpose, in the old tongues. In the days that followed, Sefu grew fiercely protective. Any vehicle that passed too close was met with a low warning growl. Mara barely left Nia's side, even forsaking hunts to ensure her daughter was never out of sight. Thandi noted the way Mara's instincts sharpened, how every muscle in her body was tuned to her cub's slightest cry. One morning, Elijah spotted a rogue male lion prowling near the park's eastern boundary. That night, Sefu faced him under a blood-red moon. The battle was brutal, a clash of claws and roars. Though bloodied, Sefu emerged victorious, ensuring Nia's safety. In the weeks that followed, Thandi discreetly left food near their territory, and Elijah repaired the fences against poachers. Nia began practicing her skills, chasing after rabbits and birds while learning patience and discipline from her parents. She wrestled with tufts of grass, pounced on shadows, and observed the migration patterns of zebras and elephants with awe. She encountered dangers too: angry buffalo herds, venomous snakes, and lurking leopards. Each experience honed her instincts, sharpened her senses, and deepened her understanding of the wild. During a terrible drought, Nia was separated from her parents while tracking springbok. Alone and afraid, she remembered her lessons. Stay calm, find high ground, listen to the land. Climbing a low ridge, she spotted Sefu's silhouette and made her way back, braving the challenges of the savannah alone. When she returned, exhausted and shaking, Mara and Sefu welcomed her with fierce affection. From that day onward, Nia carried herself with newfound strength. She had faced the unknown and returned stronger. Makado's endless plains were no longer just a home. They were stitched into her heart with every challenge she overcame. With each passing day, Nia's bond with the land deepened. She knew the rhythm of the winds, the scent of the rains before they arrived, the subtle shift in the earth when a herd was on the move. She became a creature in perfect harmony with her world, her heart beating in time with the wild pulse of Makado. Nia also grew closer to her parents, not as a cub dependent on their protection, but as a young lioness standing proudly alongside them. She would walk beside Sefu during patrols, mirroring his every step. She would hunt with Mara, silently communicating with a glance or a twitch of her tail, moving as one fluid unit across the golden grass. One evening, as the full moon bathed the plains in silver light, the family climbed to the crest of a hill that overlooked their territory. The wind carried the scent of acacia blossoms and the distant sounds of a hyena's cackle. Sitting between her parents, Nia gazed out over the vast expanse she had come to know so intimately. It was then that Sefu released a deep, resonant roar, not of warning, but of pride. Mara joined in, her voice weaving through his. Finally, Nia added her own young but strong roar, harmonizing with theirs. The chorus echoed across the night, a symphony of belonging, a declaration that they were here, they had endured, and they would continue to thrive. Elijah and Thandi, patrolling far below, paused their vehicle and listened. Thandi wiped a tear from her eye, overwhelmed by the beauty of the moment. Elijah smiled, feeling the deep satisfaction that came from knowing they had played a small part in the survival of something truly magnificent. In the days that followed, Nia's independence blossomed further. She began venturing out alone for longer periods, scouting the far reaches of their territory, learning the intricate dance of survival on her own. Yet she always returned to Sefu and Mara, bringing with her the confidence and strength she had gained. Makado had shaped her, tested her, and ultimately welcomed her as one of its fiercest daughters. And so, under the endless African sky, Nia continued to grow, a living testament to the enduring spirit of the wild. As seasons shifted once more, bringing cooler winds and softer rains, Nia felt an unspoken calling stirring deep within her. She ventured farther from her family's core territory, exploring valleys and riverbeds that even Sefu had not patrolled in years. Each journey sharpened her instincts and broadened her understanding of the intricate web of life that thrived within Makado. During one of these explorations, she stumbled upon a hidden glade, a lush pocket of untouched wilderness where butterflies danced above wildflowers, and the river sang softly against polished stones. It was here that Nia realized she was no longer just a follower of paths. She was a pathmaker. She began marking the edges of this glade as her own, using the lessons of scent and posture she had learned from Sefu. She practiced stalking in the high grasses, ambushing imaginary prey, and observing the migrations of birds and small mammals with the keen eyes of a huntress. Yet every evening, after her solitary adventures, Nia returned to the warm circle of her family. They greeted her with gentle brushes of their heads and low, affectionate rumbles, reaffirming the unbreakable bond between them. One twilight, as Nia rested atop a sun-warmed rock, she saw a herd of wildebeest moving in the distance. Instinctively, she knew that one day she would lead her own pride, teaching others the wisdom written in the dust and grasses of Makado. But for now she was content to roam the fields that had shaped her, to carry within her the strength of Sefu, the wisdom of Mara, and the wild, unyielding spirit of the land she called home. And so the young lioness watched the sun dip below the horizon, her golden eyes reflecting the last light of day, ready to embrace whatever new adventures the endless wild would offer. The stars blossomed above Makado like 1,000 shimmering eyes, and under their ancient gaze, Nia felt a deep connection to the generations of lions who had roamed these plains before her. She was part of a lineage older than memory, older than the rivers that carved the earth, older than the wind that whispered through the grass. As night settled fully over the savannah, Nia rose from her resting place and trotted back toward her family's den. Sefu lay stretched out on a high rock, his massive frame silhouetted against the sky. Mara sat nearby, grooming her fur with slow, deliberate strokes. Seeing Nia return, they both lifted their heads in greeting, their eyes warm and proud. Nia nestled between them, feeling the safe, steady thrum of their breathing. In that moment, surrounded by the love and strength that had shaped her, she understood something deeper than instinct. That family was her anchor, her origin, and her legacy. The days that followed were filled with purpose. Nia honed her hunting skills, sometimes venturing out alone, other times moving silently beside Mara. She learned to anticipate the movements of her prey, to read the subtle changes in the wind, to wait for the perfect moment to strike. She also began to interact more with the other young lions of the park, distant cousins and wanderers who occasionally crossed into her family's domain. She practiced diplomacy and dominance alike, forging bonds and establishing her place among them. Some would challenge her, testing her resolve, but Nia's spirit, tempered by hardship and nurtured by love, was unyielding. Through victories and defeats, she grew, and with each new dawn, Makado whispered to her that she was becoming more than a cub. She was becoming a guardian of the wild. One early morning, when the mist still clung to the earth like a fragile veil, Nia encountered another young lioness near the watering hole. Her name was Zaya, a bold and spirited creature with amber eyes and a swift, confident gait. At first, the two circled each other cautiously, each assessing the other's strength and intentions. Their first meeting was not without tension. A low growl passed between them, an ancient ritual of establishing boundaries. But as the sun climbed higher and the mist dissolved into the warming air, something shifted. A mutual respect was born from that initial confrontation, and a tentative bond began to form. Over the following weeks, Nia and Zaya crossed paths many times. They sparred playfully, chased one another through fields of tall grass, and sometimes hunted together, perfecting their timing and strategy. Their companionship was not one of dependence but of shared purpose. Two young lionesses, strong and independent, forging their own destinies yet strengthened by each other's presence. Sefu and Mara observed these changes from a distance, their pride evident. They knew that Nia was building the alliances she would one day need, preparing herself for the life that awaited her beyond their immediate family. One evening, under the violet sweep of twilight, Nia and Zaya rested side by side atop a low ridge overlooking Makado. They watched herds of wildebeest moving like rivers across the plains, the distant rumble of hooves harmonizing with the heartbeat of the land. Nia closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the pulse of life all around her. She was not alone. She was part of something vast, something eternal. With Zaya at her side and the spirit of her family forever within her, Nia was ready for whatever future the wild fields of Makado would bring. The journey of the young lioness was far from over. In truth, it was just beginning. The days grew longer, and the grass turned gold under the unrelenting sun. Nia and Zaya, now inseparable companions, ventured further across Makado, testing their skills and their courage. They stalked antelope in the shimmering heat, learned the secret paths along the riverbeds, and dared each other to climb the rocky outcroppings that punctuated the endless plains. Their bond deepened not only through play, but through hardship. One afternoon, while chasing a herd, Zaya slipped into a hidden ravine. The fall was short but jarring, and she let out a sharp cry of pain. Without hesitation, Nia rushed to her side, nudging and pulling at her friend with gentle persistence until Zaya could stand again. They limped back to familiar ground together, each supporting the other with every step. That evening, Sefu and Mara welcomed the two young lionesses warmly. Mara, with her vast experience, tended to Zaya's minor injuries, while Sefu stood guard, his eyes scanning the darkening horizon. The event solidified a truth that both Nia and Zaya understood now with unshakable certainty. Survival was never a solitary path. It was a thread woven through loyalty, trust, and resilience. In the months that followed, Nia and Zaya grew into formidable hunters. Their synchronized movements and silent communication made them a fearsome pair. Together, they began to shape their own small corner of Makado, a future pride in the making. Young lions from neighboring territories occasionally approached, intrigued by the strength and unity they radiated. Through it all, Sefu and Mara watched with pride and a bittersweet knowing in their hearts. Their little cub was no longer little. She was a lioness in full, ready to carve her own story into the eternal memory of the plains. One crisp morning, as the first light touched the world in hues of pink and gold, Nia stood atop a familiar ridge. Beside her sat Saya, and in the distance the forms of Sefu and Mara were just visible, silhouetted by the rising sun. Nia lifted her head and roared, a sound rich with strength, with memory, with promise. Makado answered her roar with the rustle of grasses, the rush of rivers, the flight of birds into the waking sky. And somewhere in that vast symphony, the spirit of the wild whispered its ancient blessing upon the new guardian of the land. Her journey was not ending, it was blooming, and the wild fields of Makado would forever remember the lioness who had grown from the dust, the trials, the love, and the dreams of those who had come before. Years passed, and the winds of Makado continued their endless song, carrying the stories of the land across the tall grasses and shimmering rivers. Beneath the same open skies, a new chapter unfolded. Nia, now a majestic lioness in her prime, had fulfilled the promise whispered to her by the wild. She led a strong and thriving pride, with Zaya ever by her side as her closest ally and sister in spirit. Their pride grew not through conquest, but through unity and respect, principles that had been etched into Nia's heart since her earliest days. Sefu and Mara, though older, still roamed the familiar paths of their youth. They lived to see their daughter's legacy take root and blossom, a living testament to the strength, resilience, and love they had poured into her. Makado flourished under their watchful eyes. New cubs tumbled through the grasses, practicing their pounces and growls. The rivers ran clear, and the herds returned in great numbers, as if the land itself recognized the guardians who now ruled with wisdom and grace. Every so often, at the break of dawn, Nia would climb the same ridge where she had once stood as a young lioness. She would lift her head and release a roar that rolled across the plains, a sound not of dominance, but of belonging. A roar that carried the memory of Sefu's strength, Mara's wisdom, Zaya's loyalty, and her own enduring spirit. And always, always, the wild fields of Makado answered her. The legacy of courage, family, and hope continued, stitched forever into the golden fabric of the savannah. And so, under an endless sky, life thrived, wild, free, and beautiful. As the seasons turned and the stars traced their eternal paths across the heavens, the spirit of Makado endured. It lived in every whisper of the tall grasses, every glint of sunlight on the rivers, every heartbeat of the creatures who called it home. In the golden fields where Sefu, Mara, Nia, and Zaya once roamed, their story became legend, a reminder that even in a world ruled by survival, love, loyalty, and courage could forge something eternal. And for those who listened closely to the winds of Makado, their echoes could still be heard, a timeless song of wild hearts and unbreakable bonds. If you liked our news story, please like, share, and tap the bell to hear new stories told always.